Welcome to the local campaign. Thank you for joining us on Rogers TV. Our debate today is in the riding of Ottawa-Vanier. In just a moment, I'll introduce the 6 candidates who are here seeking your vote in the June 7th provincial election. But I'm going to quickly explain the rules for our debate today. Each of the candidates will be provided 1 minute to give you an opening statement. The order for those opening statements was drawn at random just before our telecast. Once the opening statements are complete, we'll proceed into a series of debates and discussions about the important issues in this election campaign for Ottawa-Vanier and for the province of Ontario. To start off each section of the discussion, I'm going to direct a question at one of the candidates. That candidate will have 45 seconds to respond to the question on his or her own. Then we'll open it up to several minutes of debate from amongst all the candidates. At the end of that debate, we'll go back to the candidate to whom the question was originally directed, and he or she will have 30 seconds to wrap up on that topic. We'll move through 5 or 6 different topics that way, and then we'll close off our debate with closing statements in the reverse order of the opening statements. So let's introduce to you the candidates who are running in the June 7th provincial election in the riding of Ottawa-Vanier. First is the Green Party candidate, Sheila McLean. The Liberal candidate is Nathalie Desrosiers. The Progressive Conservative candidate is Fadi Nemmer. The NDP candidate is Lyra Evans. Representing the None of the Above party is Keegan Bennett, and the Libertarian Party candidate is Ken Lewis. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us here on Rogers TV for this debate. Sheila McLean, you are first, and we're looking forward to your opening statement. You have 1 minute.
I'm Sheila McLean. I'm a federal government retiree, a yoga teacher, and an active volunteer, and I've lived in Ottawa-Vanier for over 35 years. I'm running as a Green because I care about what we're passing on to the next generations. We need to be putting people first with affordable housing, improved health care, and education, but do this in a way that is fair to the next generation, not loading huge debt onto them. The Green Party of Ontario has a costed platform of key actions, including how we pay for them. With the real challenges that we face today, we need a new way of doing politics with honesty and integrity. And that's why I'm running for the Green Party of Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Liberal Party candidate, Nathalie Desrosiers. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nathalie Desrosiers, and it has been a real privilege for the last 18 months to represent Ottawa-Vanier. I'm very proud of the work that I've done with the community. We've started a community hub at Rideau High School. We've done some more stuff for the seniors. We've had actually increased the healthcare spending, protected Montfort Hospital, protected Bruyère. I've done some work with the children with disability. So I am committed to continuing this work. It's very important to me that we invest more in affordable housing. And today I want to say that for the next 4 years, what I want to do is do more for affordable housing and for seniors. I'm also proud of the record that I've done at Queen's Park. I've been a strong force there, and I want to continue to do. I believe in a living wage, and I want to continue to work for that. So I believe that in the next election is a crucial one, and you have a clear choice to make. Let's continue to make Ontario prosperous for everyone.
All right, thank you. The Progressive Conservative Party candidate is Fadi Nemmer. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fadi Nemmer. I am the Progressive Conservative candidate for Ottawa-Vanier in this provincial election. Very proud to represent the party, to be part of delivering the changes needed in our lovely province in order to survive the hardest 14 years of this government. I lived in this riding for the past 28 years, a small business owner since 26 years, proudly husband to Johanna Nemmer, father to Mira Nemmer, Mira 20 years old in her second year at U Ottawa. I am a Francophone, French educated. I have a master's degree in chemistry. I am a family businessman, believe that action speaks louder than words. I am not a politician, but I will use politics and values to restore accountability and the transparency in government that will help all Ontarians having the affordable and sustainable life they deserve.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the NDP candidate, Lyra Evans. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to open by acknowledging that we are on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe or Algonquin people. Like I said before, my name is Lyra Evans. I am an activist, I'm an advocate for progressive change, I am a woman, I am a student, and I am a believer. I believe in advocating for the needs of those who do not have a voice. I believe that the homeless are not being treated well by society. I believe that everyone deserves an equal opportunity to access post-secondary education. I believe that young families need more opportunities to be able to go back to work because childcare has become unaffordable. I believe in the value of public utilities like Hydro One before it was sold off. And I believe that change is coming to Ontario. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, representing the None of the Above party is Keegan Bennett. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Keegan Bennett, and I hope to be the voice of people who feel they don't have a voice. For the last 15 years and before that too, people have not had their voices heard or their votes counted the way they want it to be. People can win with plurality, or majority government can be formed with only 39% of the popular vote. We need to change electoral standards. We need to change our election system. It's over 150 years old. Every 20 years, you change your car. After 150 years, I think maybe it's time to change up our electoral system as well. And despite the name None of the Above, it's not rejection of every party. I think we can all work together and, not fight each other so much like Ford and Win. But I think we should work on things collaboratively instead of treating politics like it's football or soccer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ken Lewis is the Libertarian Party candidate. Go ahead with your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Ken Lewis. I'm the Libertarian Candidate Party. I was literally born into the Ottawa-Vanier riding at the Montfort Hospital, then later grew up in Overbrook and lived around the Bathgate area. At that time, I decided to go out see the road, where I ended up in Germany, working as a civilian for our great soldiers in the Canadian military. That's where I learned how politics can be done differently than what we do here in Ottawa and in Ontario. Seeing what other foreign countries do, bringing that experience back here for you, the people. The Libertarian Party, we believe that the people should have the choice. They should have the power, not the party. The party should work for the people, not the people for the party. Thank you.
All right, thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. We are going to move into some debates now on the important topics in this election. And we'll start with a question to Sheila McLean, the Green Party candidate. I don't think there's any more important issue on the minds of Ontario voters than energy prices. So I want to ask you, what can be done to control or even lower electricity costs?
There is a lot that can be done to fight electricity prices in Ontario. First of all, I would say stop funding outdated and overpriced nuclear plants, which triple our electricity rates. Say yes to low-cost water power from Quebec and Manitoba, and say yes to taking advantage of the dramatic drop in renewable energy and smart grid storage. Investing in we can save energy by retrofitting homes and buildings, public buildings, to be more energy efficient, and this would also create thousands of new jobs.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on the subject of energy policy and electricity prices.
At the Libertarian Party, we have a plan to cut your bill in half. How are we going to do it? First of all, we have to get rid of that Green Energy Act. It's just costing us tons and tons of money that we cannot afford. Then we're also going to get rid of the time of use bill. And it's kind of stupid. You get home at 4 in the afternoon, 5 from work, and you have to wait to 8, 9 to do your dishes, go down to do your laundry. It's really stupid. I do have to agree with my colleague with the green energy, with the energy coming over from Quebec. It is a great source. It's cheap. We have transmission lines just over here in Cumberland that we can use. We can get it a fraction of the cost of what we're paying for the green energy right now.
So
and most importantly, we have to get rid of the subsidize. We cannot subsidize people if they can't. The solar, the wind, it's costing us so much money right now.
Okay.
I think it's important to recognize, I think many of the things you mentioned are already in the long-term energy plan of Ontario, so that's a good thing. I think the retrofit of houses is what we do with Cap and Trade. The ability to actually look at all the energy sources and reduce the cost of production of energy, as you mentioned, is already in part of the long energy plan. And that's, I think, where we want to go. We want to have a future where we actually control the cost. I know it's been, we reduced the cost of energy by 25%. We need to do more. And to do more, you have to reduce the cost in the system. And certainly, I think, in a way, that's the future, is to look at, as you say, many of the technology will save us in the upcoming years.
The Wynne government sold off Hydro One. You can't say that you're caring about the price of electricity when you turned around and sold it and bills went up 300%.
But that has nothing to do, the selling of Hydro One, which, you know, it has nothing to do with the cost of electricity.
Absolutely it does.
It does not, because even if you, and your plan is to buy back the shares, the minute that you say to someone, I'm going to buy back the share of your corporation, the share price goes up. So this is not the way to go. I think you have to cut the costs in the system. And so I encourage everybody to look at the long-term energy plan. It's been done with lots of care. It's been worked on for several years with the best experts to look at what are the possible solutions. That's where we want to go. We want to go forward.
And is your government willing to be transparent about the real long-term costs of nuclear plants? They're extremely expensive to maintain. Nobody in North America is building new nuclear plants. It's outdated technology.
As you know, there are some that are, Pickering is being decommissioned. And what's important to recognize, though, is that you need a variety of sources, because you want to have a reliable system. You know, we don't want to go back to blackout and brownouts, because you and I all need reliable electricity. And obviously, I agree. We need to make it more affordable, and that's a little bit what the long-term energy plan is all about.
I think you all got a point.
We need accountable, like, officers that work there, you know?
Yes.
Not giving themselves, like, just two nights ago, $25,000 extra on their salaries.
I agree, but I don't think firing people is a plan.
I know, I heard Ms. Wynne saying that it's unacceptable to do that, but at the same time, I'm not sure if she said that because it's close to election.
No, I'm not saying this. I'm just saying a plan is not just firing people.
How about the CEO having like $4.5 million a year? Is that fair?
No,
in
it's
Ontario
not fair.
That we pay?
I don't know why we
pay high prices in hydro.
But this is a drop in the bucket in a way when you think about what's important is to look at the future and look at how you reduce the cost in the system.
So that's why we have a plan.
About $15 million to redesign the bill system. That's it, to hire behavioral psychologists. That just seems kind of superfluous to me.
Well, I actually incentivizing people to go to new types of energy consumption is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that, because what you want to do is ensure that indeed we continue to have reliable energy, we continue to have green energy, you know, that we're not mortgaging the
word
environment.
continue, but we don't have reliable energy
what
anywhere
you're doing
in the
there
province.
as a government is you're doing your job. It's your job
Yes.
to work for the people.
And that's
to
what I've
have
been
their
doing.
life is affordable. Maybe, yes, you're doing that, but it's the whole government is not doing that. When they...
Okay. I want to give a bit of time to Lyra Evans. I think you've been trying to get in a couple times. Go ahead.
Natalie, you have spent the last 15 years failing to protect people. Hydro prices have skyrocketed, and everyday families are the ones who suffer because of it. And this tax cut that you brought in to reduce it by 25% is not enough, and it's not sustainable.
Okay.
We're going to have to stop there. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we will have lots more time to talk about the issues generally. I'm going to go back to you, Sheila McLean. You have 30 seconds to wrap up on this topic.
Okay. So note that we do not have adequate, safe methods to store the extremely toxic nuclear waste that results from nuclear energy. And over 1,000 cities and regions around the world have committed to being powered by 100% renewable energy. We in Ontario can benefit big time by leading this change.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Nathalie Desrosiers, the Liberal Party candidate. We're going to talk about government finances now. Your government talked for a long time about the need to balance the budget. How can we afford to go into deficit again at a time when the economy is growing in Ontario and we will end up adding millions and millions of dollars more to the provincial debt, which is already large?
Yes, it was a clear choice to look at having some investment in the people. This is a time of uncertainty for Ontario and for the Canadian economy. We have the lowest unemployment rate in Ontario. We have the best performing economy in the G7. Nevertheless, we know around the corner there's NAFTA deals that are being renegotiated, which could cause discomfort and uncertainty. So the best resources that we have is our skilled workforce. I say that as the Minister of Natural Resources. Our best natural resource is the people of Ontario. And to do that, we needed to invest in people. So we could have balanced the books. We did it last year. We decided that for the next year, it was more important to actually ensure that people are well educated and are prepared to take up the challenges ahead.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on this topic.
Well, the interest alone on this debt that you have is $1 million a month. That's $12 million.
But you have to compare that. You have to compare that. It's per capita that you have to look at. It's always big numbers because we don't have that. You and I don't know what these numbers. But you look at per capita. When you look in the budget, there's a pathway back to balance, and we never spend more than 1% of GDP on the debt.
We have the highest debt in the sub-nation.
Because we are one of the largest sub-nations. So that's not the issue. Is the pathway back to balance. That's what you have to look at. And look at
when are you going to stop? When are you going to stop spending my grandkids' money? That's what I want to know.
Certainly, I want to build for your grandkids to have a job. That's what I'm doing. And I understand it's different. What we are trying to do is build and creating more ability for people to work.
It's the third most spending is the debt. And you were talking about unemployment rate. It's the best.
Yeah, in 20 years.
I'm not sure if you're talking about the number before the 50,000 jobs that we lost the first month in January.
Yes.
Is you're talking about after we're going to lose this year because of the unwise minimum wage raise.
Yes, but
now we're going to lose 90,000 more jobs in Ontario.
But indeed, that's not what happened. I know that that's what your leader and your party had been saying, but it's not what happened.
It's not our numbers.
No, it's actually the unemployment rate now, today, after the implementation of minimum wage, is the lowest in 20 years.
Well, and I still see line up at unemployment centers.
So unemployment isn't the important thing. It's real jobs. Having proper manufacturing jobs is fundamentally important to building a strong middle class. And the Liberals have cut 30,000, or they've sat by, while 300,000 manufacturing jobs have left Ontario.
Let me just
Those
talk
are
about
all
this.
people who were providing for their family.
So we invest in the auto sector and we protected manufacturing jobs there. But what's important to do is to recognize that jobs of the future will not be jobs of the past. So that's the reason why this budget is about exactly what you're talking about. In the future, we will have jobs that are shorter with less benefits. What did we do? We recognize that and we provide pharmacare and dental care for people who have no benefits, because that's important. The other thing that we're doing, investing in education, because most of us will probably have to reinvent ourselves several times. The technology is moving so fast that the jobs are disappearing, and that's so you have to create the new type of economy. It's important for our people, it's important for our children and our grandchildren. We want an Ontario that is not based on the past, but on the future.
You don't need to create the same level of deficit to get these programs in. The GPO fiscal plan supports an expansion of a whole similar range of social programs, but our proposed changes with a costed and how we'll pay for them produce a projected deficit 1/3 of that currently projected by the Financial Accountability Officer.
Okay, you guys are all speaking in vague, nebulous terms. I'm not the smartest guy, so I don't understand most of this stuff. My average in high school was like 51 probably. What can you guys do for actual, what is all this debt stuff mean? People, what can you do tangibly? What can you do physically that people can get jobs?
Yes, and that's exactly what you want. You want to have a competitive tax rate for corporations because they are the creators of jobs. No, we decreased
and you supported before.
No, we reduced the small business tax rate for small businesses like yours that are going to continue to create the good jobs of Ontario. But it's important to invest in education. We need innovation. The type of jobs that we need for you is the jobs that are going going to be the ones that are in the green economy, in the new technology sector, so that we are at the top of our peak. You know, we want an Ontario that continues to be the driver of the Canadian economy.
You've been talking about unemployment, and I know almost all of my friends work as baristas, they work as part-time servers, they don't have real sustainable jobs. And the Liberal platform and the Liberal policies enrich the richer. You give millions of dollars to your friends, and you do not help the average person get real,
I don't have any rich friends. That's not what we're doing. I agree that there's a gap between the education system and access to jobs.
And you spent 12 years not fixing it.
No, obviously there's been lots of improvement. More needs to be done, and I've been there for 17 months. But I'm just saying what I really liked in the budget that you should look at is disability for more skilled apprenticeship. That's we know all the business want to have.
A quick comment from Ken Lewis, and then
we need to get the jobs back here in Ontario. We have to cut the subsidies to these companies that you decide who gets them and which ones don't. We have to cut the corporate tax so that the companies want to come back and they want to employ the people who will work in Ontario, and they will pay the taxes and they will support our economy.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Nathalie Desrosiers, for the final 30 seconds.
This budget was about investing in people, and it was about ensuring that there's a pathway back to balanced budget. We need to invest in people so that we are ready for the future of the economy. And that's what we've done. We allowed more people to go to postgraduate studies, not only just coming out of high school, but we also allowed people that are in the workforce that want to retool and retrain. This is the future. This is the prosperous Ontario we want for everyone.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Fadi Nemer, the Progressive Conservative Party candidate. Your party's platform talks of reducing provincial expenditures by something like $6 billion without eliminating any jobs. What specifically would you cut?
Well, first we are starting with $1 billion found by the Auditor General. The Auditor General, this is the first thing we're going to start with, and which is equal to $4 billion a year. And after auditing all what it has to be audited, and that's what we said we're going to do, we might find a treasure of waste that's been done for the past 15 years. And that's how we're going to start funding our platform. And that's how we're going to start funding the things we said we're going to do. And we commit we're going to do it. And the thing is, in our platform, it's not like it's a promises that's not going to be done for 14 years. It's in our platform, we have guarantees that it's going to be done, from hydro to healthcare to mental care and the list goes on. And every day, every 2 days, we're coming up with a priority.
It's open to everyone now on this topic. Go ahead.
Finding $6 billion in efficiencies is a funny way of saying you're going to cut hospitals and you are going to cut nursing staff and support for people. You cannot find $6 billion in efficiencies. It doesn't exist. Mr. Ford,
one of the things that we're going to do is that we're going to open businesses in Ontario. We're going to bring more businesses. We're going to bring the manufacturers that they left Ontario, and we end up with 300,000 unemployed people like they were working in the manufacturers. That's how we generate the economy in our province. So it's not that by the $1 billion, but we might find more and more than that, but by big numbers.
Mr. Ford made a very similar promise when he ran for city councillor in Toronto. He said he would find efficiencies, and he did so by closing libraries and parks.
And he saved the city $1 billion.
No, closing libraries and parks is not saving things that people want. People like libraries and they like parks, and in the provincial level, we like healthcare and we like public transit.
Well, you're talking about something in the past, and we weren't in the government. Now we're talking about things we promised the people we're going to do, and we're going to do it.
That's how we judge politicians, by their record.
And the record was great.
Yeah, well, let's look a little bit. You know that the government of Ontario is the leanest across all government in Canada. It's the one per capita that we spend the least on government.
Because you're comparing Ontario, Natalie, to Prince Edward Island, to Manitoba. We are competing in Ontario. We are competing with California. We are competing with New York.
But if you
we're
want
not competing with Prince Edward Island.
My point is simply, if you want to try to find efficiencies, you're going to have to cut jobs somewhere.
We're not going to do it.
To say this is...
We said we're not going to do it, and we're not going to do it. We're going to create jobs. We're going to put money. We're going to put money in the pocket of the people. And that's what we're going to do.
So are you going to hire more nurses?
Yes, of course. You did cut
No, we just hired
cut many jobs in the healthcare system, and you cut many jobs in with the doctors. In the residencies and residencies, now you're going to add. You said you're going to add 50 more doctor residencies, but we're not going to do. We're going to add more jobs in the healthcare, especially that I have experience in the health system.
You're talking about cutting jobs in healthcare. Both governments have done that. The PC government and the Liberal government. For example, I have personal experience in a hospital. You know, I've been sick most of my life. You know, I was born with a disability. Most hospitals I've been to have been good, but every once in a while you go to a hospital where you nearly die. At the Montfort, I was nearly administered a medication I was severely allergic to, despite the very visible wristband. You know, it's a problem of, it's not about individuals, it's about the system, really. It's we got to fix. We can't talk about cutting money or giving more money to hospitals until we can ensure they're working properly first.
So what you're talking about is, I'm sorry that happened to you, but what you're talking about is systemic of the underfunding that the Liberals have done for the past 12 years. They've frozen hospital budgets and let inflation run rampant so that they've functionally cut the hospital budgets over the last 12 years.
So,
it's not underfunding, it's the bureaucrats. When 50% of the money, the health money, actually goes to the bureaucrats, the LHINs, what can we do with that money if people had the control of it? We give the people the control of that money and say, you want OHIP, go to OHIP. You want private, go to private. Do whatever you want.
Okay,
alone with one LHIN, just alone from the money we save, we can have 100 doctors, 1,000 nurses, 500 PSWs, 10 MRI machines. How would that cut the wait time? It'll be incredible.
But, so what you're saying actually is that you say let's avoid all coordination, but it's not appropriate.
No, we're saying let the people have choice.
You have to have to look at healthcare. You have to have a holistic approach. It's home care. It's nurse practitioners, and that's what I like. I mean, when I joined the Liberal team, what I liked is because they looked at the healthcare system and said it's not only about doctors and hospital. We have to look around the stream. We're doing pharmacare. We're doing dental care. We're looking at home care, ensuring that personal support workers are well paid. Mostly they're women, and they should be well paid. That's what we've done.
Can you give me a reason why we have that long wait at the hospital?
The wait list
why we have health care at hallway?
We don't. Okay, I'm sorry, but I go to the healthcare in Ottawa often, and I think they're doing a great job. So I'm not going to be there.
Have you been at emergencies?
I've been at emergencies.
Well, I had many problems, many accidents.
Have you been to the Montfort? I would ask you if you've been to the Montfort.
Yeah, and I have to say.
Have you watched someone die in the hall? Because the nurses weren't caring, because they were having a heart attack.
Oh, yes, I'm really sorry for that. I think that's, that's
it's
a tragedy.
Incompetence. It's not your fault. It's just incompetence. We need to fix it.
Well, it's every time that there's a tragedy in a hospital, I think we all are affected. And I think we want to have a good, strong system where people are well paid, that they're not overworked.
Okay. We could keep talking about that, but we need real tangible change.
Thank you,
real tangible change. We can't just keep talking about it.
We're going to go back to Fadi Nemer, to whom I directed the question. You have the final 30 seconds on this. Go ahead.
Okay, well, they were saying that we're not going to, how we can reduce the budget or how we can fund our budget. As we said, we're going to start with the $1 billion that the Auditor General found, and we're going to audit every ministry and every single institution in the government that we can find any waste or any funds that's not supposed to be there. And we're going to open Ontario for business. We're going to bring businesses back to Ontario. That it's like that we can bring more economy in this country, in this province.
Thank you. Next question is for the NDP candidate, Lyra Evans. Your party has talked about increasing taxes on wealthy Ontario residents and on businesses. What impact is that going to have on the Ontario economy?
So, as you might be aware, Ontario has the lowest provincial corporate tax rate of any province in Canada. And by raising it to be more in line with the other provinces, we're simply going to use that money to properly fund things like our healthcare system. When we ask the wealthiest among us to pay more to ensure that everyone has equal access to healthcare, it's not unreasonable. And the people who make $220,000 a year or more, or $300,000 a year or more, need to be paying their fair share back so that people like you and I don't have to wait 12 hours at a hospital. So people like you and I can find affordable housing. And so people like you and I have a chance to go to university and get a real education. Thank you.
Okay, it's open to everyone now.
I'm going to piggyback on that because that's actually an excellent point. I think you have the right intentions, but in my view, I don't think income taxes, because income of extremely wealthy people. Income is one of the least. Increasing tax on their income would be one of the least ways to get their money, because most of that is in stocks, most of that is in big corporations. Corporations like Loblaws, Rogers, Bell, all the big players, they're making bank. They hide their money in offshore seas account or overseas accounts. This money, it's not just income tax. It's important to, I think raising the income tax on the extremely wealthy would be a good idea, but we also need to consider...
the corporations.
It's true. The corporations, I think, is the most important taxes we need to raise.
We're committing to that too.
I want to ask Lyra, are the corporations, they aren't part of our society here?
Hardly.
They didn't work hard to make their money, or they didn't work hard to open businesses for people to have more jobs? So how we can bring more jobs to our country if we don't have the right system for them? You're comparing, as I just said to Natalie, you're comparing Ontario to Prince Edward Island. It's not true. We are competing with big provinces at the borders, with California, with New York, and they have this. You can't say we have the lowest corporate tax while you're bringing it down by 1%. We're bringing it down by 1%. We're not going to put it high. Why? Because we are going to bring businesses to Ontario, to move the economy, to bring more jobs to the people that they have no jobs right now.
You asked me why we should be raising the taxes on the corporations. And the answer to that is because there are corporations, you asked me if the people didn't work hard. There are corporations, individuals in Ottawa who own $1 billion worth of assets. They own Loblaws, they own Shoppers Drug Mart. And so those people probably work very hard, but
they are paying taxes like any other where.
They're not paying enough taxes is the point, because there are the people that they employ, Loblaws or Shoppers Drug Mart or the Loblaws knockoffs like
they are paying enough. And how you can bring more businesses if we have the overhead here and the red tape is so that they can do it.
Why don't we think a little bit about, you're trying to increase business corporate tax at a time where there's lots of uncertainty with NAFTA. That's my fear with it.
The economy is doing incredibly well.
Yeah,
now is the time to raise the corporate tax, to pay back into society.
Aren't you worried that actually when NAFTA, if NAFTA doesn't come through, that indeed there's going to be a time of uncertainty. So you need stability. And that's why we said exactly that we are in the middle between the NDP and the Conservatives. We're doing the...
So in fact, I don't know now who's the NDP.
We're pricing businesses out of Ontario. We have the highest hydro rates. We have the cap and trade, the skilled labor. We have... Now you want to increase the tax rate for the businesses to, what, 5.5%, whatever, in Ontario?
Up by 1.5, from 11.5 to 13.
Okay.
So you're going to let all the other businesses you're telling them just move outside the border.
No, yes. I don't want them to
That's
move
what
outside
you're
the border.
going to do.
So they will, under the NDP, we're introducing a pharmacare plan. They won't have to pay for benefits for their employees because it'll be covered by a universal pharmacare.
Like back when during Bob Rae was the prime minister.
It's very important not to create a climate where business is not welcome. And that's the fear that we have when we look at your program. It is not business friendly.
The NDP is not anti-business.
But your cap and trade does the exact same thing.
No,
it scares the business off. It brings more cost to a business.
Well, but it's for the environment, and indeed, most businesses that I speak to, they've adapted to it. They don't want it to be changed. I know the Conservative want to change it.
How much money of your cap and trade is actually going to the environment? Can you please tell me that?
Yeah, well,
I can answer.
I know you can.
It's actually very important that you continue to have a climate change strategy, and that you are looking to ensure that people indeed have the ability to change to a green and sustainable economy. That's what we've been doing. That's what we need to continue to do, and that's the most important thing for the next few years.
Natalie, you folks make promises and then break them every election. Every election, you come forward with these bold, innovative plans, and
I agree on that.
Good, we all agree.
So I think you disagree a little bit on which plan
and
you
you
want.
agree in many other things.
That's true. I think the liberal way is always to be a bit more balanced than the NDP and a little bit more progressive than the Conservative. And I think it's because that reflects a little bit more where a balanced plan is probably what's the appropriate way.
That's time. We'll go back to Lyra Evans. I asked you the question. You get the final 30 seconds.
Yeah. So The NDP believes in having those who make so much more than the rest of us pay a little bit back to ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed in society. Corporate taxes being raised are not going to scare off businesses, and the NDP gets painted with an anti-business brush like no other political party. But that's because the Liberals and the Conservatives want to continue to give millions of dollars to people who aren't like you and me. They don't want to spend it on healthcare, and they don't want to spend it on housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Keegan Bennett of the None of the Above party, you get the next question. It's a question from a member of the community. What should be done to create more affordable housing in Ottawa?
Well, that's an excellent question. I'm not sure I would have the complete answer to that or even an idea of how to answer that. I think that's something we all need to figure out collaboratively. I do not think it should be under provincial jurisdiction. When you paint things with a provincial paintbrush, you get people who are way out in rural areas paying $300 for the transportation fee for their hydro. And everything needs to be more community-based, in my opinion. We need to be able to vote on issues directly. We shouldn't have to elect representatives every 4 years in the faintest hope that they might represent us actually. Instead, we live in the internet age. We can communicate with each other. We can figure things out on our own without having to represent someone who won't necessarily do what they told their representatives they would do.
So
Okay,
you said so yourself that you didn't have a plan. The NDP has a plan to tangibly lower the cost of housing. We want to introduce inclusionary zoning laws with teeth, where if a developer wants to put up a building with 100 units or 150 units, that they have to give, as a requirement of being able to build the building, a percentage of those units to the community housing program. That will lower the cost of housing. We need to be encouraging developers to build housing that isn't all condos. I don't know if you've looked around downtown Ottawa recently, but downtown Ottawa is full of new condo buildings that aren't even finished yet, and they're completely unaffordable.
I think it's a good opportunity for all of us to think about affordable housing. As I said, for me, it's a big issue for the next 4 years because there is federal engagement now. So there is a plan at the federal level where the province can match, and then we need to involve the municipality. So indeed, I think this will be the time for housing. I myself also am really interested in helping co-op housing. I've been doing that for a lot of my time at Queen's Park, and I think that's another model. I agree with inclusionary zoning. I think we introduced it. You would do a little bit differently than us, but I think that it's exactly the way to go. But we need to do more. We need to have mixed housing because you don't want to create ghettos where everybody is living of the same strata altogether. That has been the strength of Ottawa in a way, to have mixed neighborhood. We need to continue to do that. Ottawa-Vanier is a great place to live because of that. And I think we need.
I would say take a walk down Montreal Road. Take a walk down
Mr.
Montreal Road and see what you see.
I'm glad that he apologized because I'm really proud of Ottawa-Vanier.
I didn't hear him apologize.
So the Green Party of Ontario would require all new building developments to have a minimum of 20% affordable housing. We would put $200 million over existing projected increases for the budget in funding for shelters, social, co-op, and supportive housing. And we would increase the housing speculation tax to help them be able to pay for the most vulnerable people to have a place to call home.
I agree that housing is really important. I mean, I believe in a real right to housing, not merely a right to one night in a shelter. We need to have supportive housing because we need to link also housing with supportive services, mental health support and so on. So I think the vision is really to leverage whatever the government is at, the municipal government, the federal government, and ensure that we create housing that is mixed, where everybody is there, healthy communities, sustainable, green, and there's lots of innovation that's happening.
There's lots of regulations, and there's lots of red tape. Like you can't make
regulations are so the building doesn't burn down, like in the UK.
Natalie, right now there are more people waiting for affordable housing than living in affordable housing.
I agree.
Under the Liberals, the last 12 years, you've had 12, 14 years to fix this, and you haven't. And that means you either didn't know it was a problem, and that means you're out of touch, or you didn't want to fix it, and that means you're malicious. And those two things,
I don't believe that I'm malicious at all, and indeed, I think I think part of it is true that the number of people that are coming to Ottawa and wanting to live in affordable housing is greater than expected. And I agree, it's a problem. I hate when I see families living in a motel. So I agree that it's a challenge for all of us. And certainly I think that's my commitment, is affordable housing is #1 priority. I mean, I've been there 17 months. I've worked to get community housing to be more innovative. We want to work on having a good strategy for bed bugs. There's lots of things that we need to do.
And that's our commitment too.
Good.
There are currently a 10-year wait list to get into community housing in Ottawa.
Yes, it's unacceptable. I agree with you.
And you're the government. That means it is your responsibility to have fixed it.
It's a shared responsibility with the municipalities. Yes. And I agree that we need more money. We need more money from the federal government as well. And I was really happy that finally we got some federal money on the table so that we can actually move forward and build more affordable housing. I agree with you. I think we can work together on this.
We're not going to waste any of that money.
The best way is to get the people the affordable housing is to get them out of the affordable housing. We have to put more money in their pockets, less taxes, better jobs, so that they can actually afford a place to live. The Libertarian Party will make a tax, the flat tax rate on land transfer of $275. Right now it's costing tens of thousands of dollars, even more if you're in the Toronto area, which is being added to people's mortgage, which is only increasing their monthly payments, their interest. So we have to get people back into their own homes and out of them.
But
we don't want people living in subsidized housing. We want people to be able to sustain their own life.
So I don't know if you remember, but I've been homeless. Yes. I have spent a lot of time in community housing, staying with friends and talking to people. Yeah. And it is completely disrespectful to those people, the state that we leave our community housing buildings in.
I agree.
The air doesn't circulate. And
yes, it is.
It is the responsibility of government to fix community housing. And the Liberal government, the Wynne government over the past 14 years, has failed to do that. And I lay it at your feet to try and justify their actions.
Well, I agree that there's lots more to do on housing. As I said, to me, I left the law school to go into politics because I wanted to ensure that the rights that we have on paper are actually found in reality. Okay. And I agree with you. This is a big challenge. You have my commitment on this one.
We'll stop there. Thank you. We'll go back to Keegan Bennett. I asked you the question, so you get the final 30 seconds on this topic.
Well, I think when it comes to community housing and actually any housing at all, affordable housing, we shouldn't be pointing fingers. That we all agree there is a giant problem here. Now the problem is how are we going to fix it? We need actual community work. We need tangible we can't just throw money at the problem if there's a deeper seated issue than that. When families are growing further and further apart, there's something. There's definitely something we can do that without handing it up to the provincial government.
Okay. Thank you. Final question then. We'll go to Ken Lewis, the Libertarian Party candidate. And I want to ask you about education. What can we do to improve the curriculum in Ontario to generate better results for our children?
Well, thank you, Mark. The Ontario Liberal Party, we actually have a plan. It's in our platform. We want to put parents back in control of their child. Who knows the parents better? The government? Who knows the child better, the government or the parents? It's an obvious answer. So we want to give you the funding, the per-student funding, to send your child to wherever you want. If it's a specialty school, if it's a local private, a local public school, it's up to you. You know what your child needs. Maybe you have a special circumstances, autism, where our system, the school system is not right for you, well, you will have the money that you can send the child to wherever school you want. Thank you.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on education and in particular on the curriculum.
So hundreds of schools have closed in Ontario in the last 12 years. And that is entirely the fault of an endemic underfunding of our public school system. Liberals and Conservatives have underfunded education for decades, and hundreds of schools have closed.
We've been in government for the past 14 years.
But the 6 before that.
Yeah.
The rate of graduation from high school has moved from 68% to 86%. Over the last 14 years. That's a success. We should thank our teachers who have, really gone up and kind of encouraged our...
Still, we have lots of failure. in maths and many other things.
Yes. Yeah, we now have math specialists in every school, and that's very important because teachers are generalists, and to have math specialists in schools is very important. I have seen new schools in Ottawa-Vanier all the time. I went and visited it. It's a great strength of our community to have these new schools, well equipped and well retrofitted as well.
Well, my comment here, just we're gonna revisit all the curriculum and at schools to provide our kids with the best education possible.
I think the curriculum to me is just one aspect of it, and my sense is that it is important to ask the specialists. I think when you have a higher rate of graduation, it's a good thing. You have people that actually doing well.
Enough consultation with the parents.
I think there was. If it's not the question to me is it's a curriculum. I know that you're worried about the sexual education part of it, but it's a curriculum that helps students, young kids, say no to predators. That's why it's there. It's not
at 6 years old they can say no?
If they are on the internet, it's important that they understand how to defend themselves.
This is something if they are on the internet. Who's telling you, like on the internet at home, their parents, they're letting them go where they can find about those things?
I agree with you that many parents have very good rules on the internet, are doing a great job, but some may not.
So isn't fair to ask the parents to be involved when we change a curriculum, something like that?
There was lots of consultation. In any event, I think the question... Is it better to concentrate
on how we let our kids be successful in math? If we can compare Ontario, like the grade 6 that they have the exam, they are lowest than any other province.
Actually, I think we've improved our scores along the way,
which is good.
In language and writing and math. So that's a good thing. So let's talk also about post-secondary education. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud of the fact that this year more than 200,000 young and older people have gone back to school, and that's a big investment in our.
But that's your job, Natalie. Sorry, that's your job to do that, because if you're not going to do it as a government, who's going to do it?
Yeah, well, would you do it?
Yes.
Like you were not,
yes. We'll do even more, and you'll see.
You're doing OSAP. What are you going to do on OSAP?
We'll do even more, and you'll see.
Your party did not vote in favor of it.
Post-secondary in Ontario is the lowest funded than across Canada, and we would propose transitioning in better public funding, starting to be with Canadian norms, and moving towards being able to publicly fund tuition at the post-secondary level, the undergraduate level.
So the Ontario NDP has committed to turning any loans that a person would have gotten into grants that don't need to be paid back, because we have been burdening people who are going into or coming out of university with tens of thousands of dollars of debt. And those people are not going to be able to buy homes, and they're not going to be able to start families because they're trying to pay off this money.
It sounds great. The only issue is there are many people that have paid back their loans, so you don't want to create imbalance. The way in which we're doing is when people are not making money, they are exempted from repaying this. So I think it's fairer in that sense. But for the future, when you have the reform to OSAP was exactly to make sure that the next generation will go to university free of debt. And I think that's a commitment that we should uphold. And I'm glad that the PC says that they are in support of OSAP. I have never heard that.
We support the best education for our kids.
That's true. Let's talk about maybe the childcare.
I really want to talk about Rideau High School before. Yes. Because when you ran, you said you had a plan to stop Rideau High School from being closed, and you failed to do that. Rideau High School today sits with no students in its classrooms. It has nobody, no teachers, and you're saying you're turning it into a community hub, but that is a shallow second best. It is not nearly as good as the school would have been.
Okay, so the school board is the entity that's responsible for the decision. I went to the school board and tried to make my point, and certainly I think their view was it was a better education for the students to go to Gloucester. I was sad by it. Many people were sad by it. But let's turn lemon into lemonade. One of the issue was how we're going to kind of use the property in a way that's going to benefit the community and continue to help the people around it. So I think the community hub, idea is a good one. And you were there for the opening, and I hope that you will support this, because that allows, you know, the Ottawa, which is the Native Friendship Center, to have a place. Other groups that did not have a place in the community can go there. You know, talk to the Somali community. They need a place for their kids to have homework clubs and so on. So I think using this,
do you know where a good place to put a homework club would be? A school.
Yeah,
and so
that's true, but it's not always the good for the Somali kids, because they have to go back home, and that's why they want to have it, because in the school they're going to be bused to a different place, and their parents can't afford to go in and drive and pick them up after.
No, so, but Rideau High School was in the neighborhood. It was walkable for a lot of these families.
I agree.
Now they're taking 45 minutes to bus inside the city to get to school.
You know, I think, you know, I agree that we tried really hard. You know, the numbers were not there. The school board,
because you didn't fund them properly.
Actually, I don't agree with this, because indeed, when you look at every school board wants more money, and I agree that there are some shortages there, but it was not a question about money. It was a question that they could not offer the same curriculum to the kids that were there. And the reason
it was underfunded.
Because they were too small classes, and that's their choice. They're the specialists in education, and I believe that at some point you have to trust the specialists.
We'll stop there. Ken Lewis, you get the final 30 seconds on this. Go ahead.
So with the Libertarian Party, I said we will attach funding to the student so the parent and the student can make the decision on where they want to send their child. As Natalie was saying before, we have the Somalian families that want the homework. Well, they can decide which school to send. The problem with the money going to the school right now, the 38% of our taxes of the funding, the school funding is for the child, and 62% is bureaucracy, and that needs to change. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to all of our candidates for being part of the debate portion of our telecast. We're now going to move to the closing statements. Once again, we will do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. We drew the order at random before our telecast. So we are going to start with Ken Lewis of the Libertarian Party. Go right ahead. You have 1 minute.
I'd just like to thank everybody here today and everybody watching to let me talk and say what I believe is best for Ontario. The Libertarian Party of Ontario, we have a plan to offer you choice and return the power to where it belongs, the people, not the parties. It is a lofty goal, but it's what every Libertarian believes in. Changing government overnight is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult, but we need your help to do it too. We need your help to support our ideas. We need your support out there to get our message. We need the average Ontario to say enough is enough to the ever-tightening control over our rights and to the never-ending revenue streams that taxes that the government has. Instead of more of the same, send a message to the big three parties and say enough is enough. Vote for less government, vote for more choice, vote Libertarian, libertarian.on.ca, or vote for Ken Lewis on Facebook. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Keegan Bennett, who represents the None of the Above party. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone who came out today. I think you all have your hearts in the right place and you all have good ideas, but I think it's important to not butt heads with each other. I think we all agree there are problems, but when it comes to finding the solutions for them, we can't get stuck on one thing. We need to work collaboratively. We need to, and when it comes to just about any issue, the problem is usually much deeper than it seems. All the solutions proposed seem to be slapping a Band-Aid on top of a larger issue, which is that our elections are not fair. We have first past the post system. You know, we don't have proportional representation. Under the current system, the Greens and the Libertarian Party will probably never form even a minority government. NDP is unlikely to form a government. It just goes back between red and blue. And of course, those are the governing parties, so they're not going to pass any legislation that allows for fairer elections that are actually based on what people voted for. So maybe vote for the above, or at least vote for proportional representation and a direct democracy. Thank you. Thank you.
Lyra Evans, the NDP candidate, is next. You have 1 minute.
I'm kind of hurt that you said that the NDP can never form government, because it's coming, tick-tock. So right now, it's at times like this that I look around Ontario and I remember Tommy Douglas, the father of Canada's national Medicare program, the reason we have universal health care. He said, "Courage, friends. It is never too late to build a better world." And I take that to heart because I believe that we can build Ontario into a place that helps everyone. I believe that we can build Ontario into a place where everyone has an equal access to education and has a chance to make a better life for themselves. I'm really grateful to have had a chance to speak my ideas and to have everyone else up here with me. And I hope, come June 7th, that you support the NDP in forming the next Ontario government. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Fadi Nemar, the Progressive Conservative candidate.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks to Rogers Cable 22. Thanks to all the candidates. It was great being with you today. It's campaigning time. My intention was to visit all the constituents of this riding. I will keep going towards that, even after June 7th, as your MPP. I will be the same Fadi you know for 27 years, knocking at your doors. On June 7th, you have to choose between two parties racing to be the opposition, after we're racing to raise higher and higher and higher taxes. The PC party will deliver the change, will put money in your pockets, deliver to you the services you missed for years. I want to salute the good-hearted people of Ottawa-Vanier and tell them help is on the way, especially after the attack being done a few days ago by someone telling that Vanier is a place of cops and robbers. I want to say thanks to my supporters. We still have 20 more days to be at Queen's Park.
Thank you. We'll have to stop you there. Next, Nathalie Desrosiers, the Liberal Party candidate.
This is an important election. You have a choice between, on one hand, Doug Ford and his cuts and his absence of plan. On the other hand, you have an uncertain NDP plan to raise corporate taxes with the impact that it might have on the business environment in Ontario. The Liberal Party is always the party of balance. I was proud to join the team 17 months ago because we had a plan to actually look to the future and ensure that people were going to have access to employment and also to education for a good economy in the future. It's a green economy that we want, an innovative economy, and that's why I came to politics with. I love Ottawa-Vanier. I love when people come into the office. I love being a strong voice for you. I was a strong voice for you at Queen's Park. I really want to continue to be that strong voice for you. On June 7th, I'm asking for your support.
Okay, thank you. Finally, the closing statement from Sheila McLean, the Green Party candidate.
We have real challenges facing us, but there are thousands of practical steps we can take, thousands of innovative solutions that we can implement, but we need the right leadership and political will to move forward. Across Canada, we're seeing a green wave, with now 6 provincial Greens seats. Your vote sends a message about your vision and values. Vote for what you believe in. Vote to protect our air, our land, and our water for the people who live here. Vote to build our new, clean, innovation economy that Ontario needs. This June, vote for me, Sheila McLean, to fight for you and our future in Queen's Park.
Thank you, and thank you to all the candidates for participating in the debate today on Rogers TV. Good luck to all of you. And I want to remind our viewers that on election night on June the 7th, we will have live local election results and full coverage of what's happening in your community right here on Rogers TV and on 1310 News Radio. Thanks for watching the local campaign.